Okay, we'll start then. Good evening, everyone, all the parents, students who have joined, and good evening, Brigitte and Sean. Thank you for taking out time, and it's going to be a great conversation and very insightful for the students and the parents who are looking for a career in aviation. So today's topic, in fact, is the life of a pilot and how and what ways you can do that. So before we start on that discussion, I would like to give a brief introduction about this industry. So it has been almost 120 years since the Wright brothers have the first flight-powered plane as Kitty Hawk in North Carolina. This is the foundation of the aviation industry, which is standing till today. So as an industry is shining, because as humans, it is I would think it is the best achievement of our skills where you can fly in the air, something humans can achieve on that part. So aviation is a big contributor to major industries like travel, tourism, hospitality, and retail. Also, it is both domestic and international professionals are there in the aviation industries, and there are many more jobs which are apart from the pilot, which are there in the aviation industry. So if anyone is not able to, make it in one way, but still wants to be associated with the aviation industry, they can still do that. Right. So before I start it, I'll give a brief introduction about Brigitte. She's there with me today, and her home country is South Africa, and she has been in the industry for 13 years. She started her career as a flight instructor and charter pilot in South Africa. From last 6 years, she has been flying in the Middle East as a first officer at Abu Dhabi-based Falcon Aviation. Wow, Brigitte, welcome. Thank you for taking out time.
Thank you very much. We're very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's amazing to see a woman pilot.
Thank you.
Then we have Sean. They are a couple, and he started his flying career in South Africa Air Force. After 10 years of service in the Air Force, he left the Air Force as a major and joined South African Airways as a first officer. He has been pilot on different Airbus planes and done flight both regionally and internationally. He moved to UAE to join Etihad Airways as first officer and has flown both A320 and 380 planes during his tenure with Etihad. Wow, Sean, welcome to the seminar.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
This is amazing. I'm feeling high with you guys.
Yeah. It is a good career and lifestyle too.
Yeah. So today we have wonderful audience. It's both students and parents. Thank you for taking out your time today to join with us. I promise it is going to be a very interactive and very informational session for you all, and it will help you aligning your interest and areas with a career of your choice. A brief introduction about me, myself, Meghna Khan. I'm the founder of MK Counseling Services. I help the students and the working professionals in aligning their strengths, their interest, and their passion with the respective career field. So we have been doing a series of webinars in which we are talking about different professions. So today we are here to discuss about aviation. So Brigitte, I would like to ask you, how did you end up in being a pilot? Was it something you always wanted to do, or it just happened to you?
Actually, Meghna, from my childhood years, I remember my grandfather was a glider pilot back in the 1930s in Germany. And he always explained to me how amazing it was to be in the air and away from everything. So I think that definitely sparked my interest. And then later on, I didn't know exactly how to go about to make it my career, but I wanted to join the Air Force. Unfortunately, because of my weight and my height, I got rejected because I'm on the lighter side, and the restrictions for the Air Force at that time was based on the ejection chair for the training aircraft. So
that's interesting point that height and weight is also important.
Yes, especially when it comes to the Air Force. They have, still some old requirements in place. So it was, if I can recall, 65 kilograms for a girl, and the length should be 163 centimeters. So I unfortunately missed that. So I had to self-fund my career. So it happened that I actually ended up in another industry, working and paying for all my licenses. And at the end, I'm so grateful to be where I wanted to be. And yeah, so that's amazing. So now my husband, he was able to join the Air Force. So he can tell you more about how he joined.
So your Air Force has given you your life as well as your career, both.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Sean, how was it? Was it with you? How was it? Was a career choice you made on your own, or it just happened with you? How did you decide that you want to be a pilot?
It's something I've always wanted to be since I was a small little kid. It's the only job I've ever dreamed of. Well, not really a job. The only dream I've had was being a pilot. I didn't see it as a job.
Okay.
So during my high school years, I started seriously looking at what are the requirements for the Air Force, and I started applying in my grade 11 year. So grade 12 is the final year. So in grade 11, I started applying to the Air Force already and studying on my maths and science course. That was a big requirement as well. The competition.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to come on the next question. That what are the specific subjects students should select in their secondary school if they want to be a pilot?
Look, if you're going via the Air Force, definitely maths and science. That's primary requirement. If you're doing it self-funding, then there's no real set down requirement for it, as long as you pass all the academic subjects in the pilot licensing. But a major part of that is, I can say, physics and maths, applied maths and physics.
So these subjects are mandatory up to the grade 12, and then you can directly go for the licensing, or you need to do your graduation and then go for it?
You can start your licensing even before you graduate. I think you can do your private pilot license from age 16 years. You can get that.
Okay.
So even while you're still at school, you can already start with your private pilot license.
Okay.
And then even at school, you can start your commercial license as well. I'm not sure what the exact age limit is for that, but I think it's 18 years old.
Yes, 18. Yeah. And for air transport pilot license, 21.
Yeah, the final license. So there are 3 licenses: private pilot license, commercial license, and then air transport license. So that's the final one to really get into the airlines and get a professional job, is the air transport pilot license.
Okay. So that means secondary certificate is important to enroll for licensing. You can pursue your graduation side by side. That is okay. That is up to you.
Yes.
Yes.
And before I come to the next question, I just want to tell all the parents and students here that if you have any question you want to ask the pilots, our guest here today, please write it in the chat box and I will ask them. So coming back to this, I also wanted to know that once you become a pilot in your field, for further growth in your career, do you think that graduation, what kind of courses people should do?
Well, I honestly don't think you have to graduate. You know, if you need some additional training, probably something like aviation psychology or business management or something like that will be useful. But honestly, if you really just want to fly, unless you live in the USA and you want to join one of the major airlines, they require you to have a bachelor's degree of some sort. But in other flight schools, and even the Air Force straight off school, you can join and no problem at all. It's just the USA that I know that require you to have a bachelor's degree. I mean, you can obviously do a bachelor's degree just if you want to, and then maybe, like I say, do something that.
Yeah, it's something that would just help you in your career. I would say help you getting into maybe management in the airline itself as well, having a bachelor's degree in either business management or aviation management. It's always a good thing on your CV, and also a good backup for the day that you might, for some medical reason, might lose your job, but you can still remain in the aviation industry because you build your whole life around it. So it's something you really specialize in. It's a very specialized job. So people try and remain in the industry basically their whole life, because it takes so much work and so much time to really get into it.
Is there any number of hours which you need to do before flying, or that licensing you only get when your number of hours are completed?
Yes. For each license, there's a specific layout of hours you require. So, for instance, before you can fly for a major airline, and before you can become a PIC, a pilot in command of a major airline, you have to have your air transport pilot license. That's the highest license you have to obtain before you can
find a real
airline,
a real job, a real flying job.
So for ATPL, you require 1,500 hours of total time. But I mean, for each license, for your private pilot license, there's a layout of hours. For your commercial pilot license, there's a layout of hours, and then the highest one is your air transport pilot.
Yeah, the thing is, with your private pilot license, it's 40 hours minimum, but most of the time it takes a little bit longer. Some people are very quick to pick up the flying skill. It's also about when you start, you need to continue your training, which was great in the Air Force because there was a set out curriculum. And it was done in private schools. It's depending on the student and the instructor. There's lots of variables. So the 40 hours could stretch to 50 or 60 hours. Then from there, you need 200 hours for your commercial license. So once you've done your private pilot license, you are free to rent the aircraft and fly navigation routes, do some training to add to your skills. And then once you get to the total of 200 hours, you can, after writing all the exams as well for the commercial license, you can fly the test for a commercial license with an instructor. And then
so first you have to do your private license, and then you can move on to the commercial license.
That's it.
And then the final license is your air transport pilot license.
So you basically pay until the commercial license, because nobody can pay up to 1,500 hours just flying around. So once you got your commercial license, you try and find an entry-level job that would be able to, somebody would pay you, or you would fly for exchange for free for something, just build hours. Or you can go into instruction as well. That's a good way. That's the way Brigitte did it to build hours, is giving instruction. And then until you get to that level of 1,500 hours, there's another set of exams to finish. And then once you finish that, to the test, that's when you get issued your air transport pilot license, the final one.
So these licenses, we have to go step by step.
Yes.
Yeah. So one license, before moving on to commercial, you need to have your private license, and then you can move, and then you can move ahead. I think we have a question from Nida. I think Nida, Sean and Brigitte has answered this, that she's asking, are there any types of pilot licenses in aviation? So we just discussed that it's a private license as well as a commercial license. And the third one also, you told that.
Yes, air transport pilot license.
Yeah. And another question is there from Preeti. Either of you, Brigitte or Sean, who wants to answer this. What field is important for applying to be a pilot?
I would say field as in what you study at school, maybe. I would say maths and science.
Like you said, maths and science,
Yeah, There's a lot of not science, physics. Yeah, there's a lots of maths and physics in these academic subjects that you have to pass. They're quite tough. It takes a lot of studying. It's not very intricate maths or physics, but you got to understand it. It's the basics, and then you work on that. And as long as you understand it and you can apply it, then it shouldn't be a problem. So you don't need to be a maths genius or a physics genius.
But concepts should be clear.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because within your cabin, there would be air pressure. There would be, I think the cockpit screen also, it's all technical. So people should have a background for it.
Yes. They train us to be mechanics, but we're only allowed to fly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a very interesting question. How does it feel to be, sitting in the cockpit, flying the plane? How do you feel?
I feel great. I just absolutely love flying. It's absolutely my passion, and that's what I wanted to say. If you really want to fly and become a pilot, go for it. It's the best feeling ever. I love
you get the proud feeling that you're able to fly the plane.
Yes.
Right?
And also just a different perspective every day. I mean, once you're up there in the sky, I mean, even we do similar routes every day, but everything changes in the cockpit. It's always different. So it just keeps you on your toes, and it's an amazing feeling to just be away from everything and see everything in a different perspective. Absolutely love it.
Okay. I think Preeti is clarifying that she wanted to know that anybody can still apply if it is from a non-science background. Probably she's saying commerce field. So what she wants to know that if somebody is not from the science background, does aviation industry take people from outside, like arts and humanities and commerce?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
they will be finishing those concepts in the training, right?
Yeah, yes. Definitely. During the training, as long as you can pass all the academic exams,
yes,
nobody really cares what your background is, if you're coming from arts or commerce or science or whatever your background is. That's the thing about pilots. We got a mixture of everybody in the airlines. We've got people who were lawyers, lots of engineers. In my previous company, we had a rocket scientist who decided he rather wants to fly. It's always wanted to do it. So it's
even I have a friend who has done a bachelor's of arts, and he is flying. So he's from a non-technical background, but then he applied and he worked through quite a lot of years, and then he got his license in that. So I think if you are not from the science background, you can still apply for it, but you need to clear all the exams and licensing.
Definitely.
Then I have another question from Asma. She says, what are the pros and cons of becoming a pilot? So one, Brigitte can speak about the pros of that, and Sean, you can speak about the cons of that.
Well, the pros are easy. It's such a nice industry, and we all work together as a team. So every day we have, from cabin crew to ground personnel, check-in staff, air traffic controllers, flight operations. We're such a big team, and in our company, we're more like a family. So it's so nice to every day work towards the same goal. And with safety in mind always, we always work together as a big family. And also it gives you flexibility. For myself, I don't have to stay in an office all day, for instance. I have flexible hours. My days is a little bit different to a normal airline pilot. We operate mostly offshore. So what I mentioned to you before was...
Okay.
So that's fantastic. And I love what I do. So I don't even feel like I have to go to work every day because it's my passion. So
yeah, that is very important. Sean, do you want to say anything cons, or there is nothing?
The cons, okay, it's a big investment. So you have to be 100% sure you want to be a pilot. It's a
and
really
commitment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hurdles to jump through and a lot of hoops to jump through just to get to the next license and trying to get the next aircraft onto your license, going from a piston aircraft to a turbine aircraft. So you're always looking for somebody to give you that opportunity. Then you're going from a single turbine to a twin turbine aircraft. So you're looking for another opportunity maybe.
Yeah.
And then once you reach I would say the pinnacle, joining a airline where you feel like, okay, you've made it. It's incredible to work in an industry like this, but it's also tough sometimes. While normal people that work in an office go to bed at night at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, many times I signed on to go to work only at midnight. So I would start my work tonight at midnight. I would do a flight, say, to Cairo and back. I would only be back during midday, say it's a 12-hour day. Then when you get back, sometimes you have to go to get a bit of rest in as well. You try and get sleep in, because the next mid-morning, 3 o'clock in the morning is your next flight again. So sometimes it can get very tiring.
Right.
So you have to really manage your sleep and your fatigue. So that gets difficult sometimes. And also family commitments. There's no holidays, or you're not part of the public holidays. You're not part of Christmas. You're not part of Eid. It's either you work or you're off. And you can get that concept into your mind and not worry about it's Christmas and I should be off. Then it's great. But those are things that people are used to, and it's difficult to get your head around. Either it's a working day or it's an off day. There's no Mondays or Sunday. It's just on or off.
And as far as you love your profession, you don't feel bad about it.
Exactly.
No, absolutely love it. Even going to work at midnight, you might be tired getting up, but once you get to work, you're so energized. You're just so excited for the flight, because you know this is what you love. So you really enjoy doing this.
That is what is my aim right now. That's why a lot of workshops I do in schools and otherwise. My main topic is to explain how important it is to understand your interest, passions, and then pick up a career choice. Generally we just get fascinated by our relatives, our friends around, get inspired by our father and mother, and we just start believing that we are also, liking the same thing. But it might not be the same case. So it's very important to understand that what you do is actually what you like.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Yeah.
I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was saying all of my friends that went to university, most of them changed their direction or field, and most of them, after second year or third year, they no longer wanted to be in that field.
Yeah.
So what you say is so important, and that's why career coaches are so important.
I know. Thankfully, this generation has career coaches. Our time, nothing was available. We are a product of hit and trial.
Exactly.
I have another question from Saida. She says, how important is the institute origin and country from you pass? So is there any prime institute to do the license where students from those institutes get preference, or license is a license no matter where you get it? Is there any prime institute and any country in specific which people should consider?
That's actually a good point, because there is different licenses from different countries. So for instance, in the Middle East, it falls under ICAO. Europe falls under EASA, and the USA falls under FAA. And you can operate only with a license in the region that you did your license in. For instance, we did it in South Africa, so we are basically Asia, Middle East, Africa, and then certain
Far East
parts
and
of Far East.
Australia.
So the place you want to fly, you have to satisfy the eligibility criteria of that country.
Yes. That's very important. I'm glad you brought it up. If you're planning on, say you are Indian, but you've got family in Europe, and your goal is to go and work in Europe, and you want to settle in Europe, then you must do a European license. Otherwise, you will do everything twice. The exams we're talking about. Your flying hours will get recognized, but you will have to write all the exams again if you go from an ICAO state license to an EASA state license. Or if
Okay.
you go to the American, the FAA is a relatively easy conversion. It's just one big exam. But if you go from ICAO to EASA, it's 14 exams. It's the full ATP air transport pilot license examination you got to pass again. So it is very important to decide exactly where you want to base yourself in the world for this job.
So now if you, Sean, decide to move from here to US, you have to go through another process there before you start flying.
Yeah, it's the FAA to go from Europe to the US is relatively simple. The strongest license, it seems to be the European license. Most countries accept that pretty easily and will convert your European license to their local country license without a big deal. If you go to the US, they're on another system, but it's, like I said, it's just one exam, so it's not a major stress getting a US license if you got either a ICAO or a EASA. But if you have an ICAO license getting to Europe, it's quite a big deal. It's quite a big hassle, and yeah.
Which reminds me to ask both of you, Brigitte and Sean, that how much expensive it could be, how people should arrange their finances for it.
Wow, that's a tough question. If you join the Air Force, then it's for free.
Obviously, you'll be contracted to the Air
But
Force.
when people go for commercial pilot or thing, then approximately, I mean, I want a rough idea of the cost. I don't want any specific. It's a huge money. That's all. That's all I know.
Yeah, there are basically two ways of doing it. Either you can, obviously, first thing you got to do is do your homework and find the right flight school with the right credentials. And if you're doing they call it an MPL program, which takes you straight into basically from zero to starting in an airline. Example, Air Arabia, they have this program.
Okay.
You pay a big sum of money. I think it's in the region of 600,000 or 700,000 dirhams. And you do your training with them from a flight school in Sharjah. You do basically your private pilot license, and then the rest of your training you do on a simulator, most of it. Of the aircraft you're going to fly in the airline, say the Airbus A320. So once you got that 200 hours commercial license, then they would start taking you into the airline, and you can start as a junior first officer. So that's the expensive part. There are schools in Europe that do the same. They do it for Ryanair, they do it for Wizz Air, they do it for EasyJet. So it's usually the low-cost carriers that have these programs to get people in it, but it is very expensive.
Okay.
It's basically you paying these flight schools to fly. It's a pay to fly, which is a scheme. There's a lot of negativity towards it sometimes in the industry where pilots have to pay to fly. It should be the other way around. It's one of the few industries where we spend so much money and so much time, and then we still have to pay people on top of that to do the job. I don't see doctors paying.
And it's a very high risk job as well. I mean, with all you guys are putting yourself at stake every time.
Yeah, if something goes wrong in an office, you might get a paper cut. If something goes wrong in a cockpit, you might just end up in a ditch somewhere with everybody on board as well. So it's really, you got to be, it's a big responsibility, and you got to be on top of it. You really got to, your training has to be top notch, and you got to be comfortable where you are. So that's an important part. So I'd say finding the right school, choosing the right program as well. And then obviously budgeting. I would say to get a commercial license is probably in the region of 50,000 US, 60,000 US, if I have to take a guess. And then with that, you can find an entry-level job, an instructor or whatever, and work your way up, get the hours, get the experience, get the background.
Okay.
That when you join an airline, you've got career.
Yeah.
So there's some flight schools. Actually, there's a flight school in Miami that one of my friends attended, and so you can look at different options. She wanted a FAA license, but I mean, if you don't have a green card to work and live in the USA, that doesn't really make sense. So unless you have a European passport or family in the EU and you will be able to work in Europe, then I mean, I would suggest maybe look at different flight schools. Maybe in Spain, I've heard some really good reports from their flight schools, and even in Greece, it's quite affordable. And you can also, if you don't have all the money up front, some people like myself, we took out a student loan, so I worked and paid for my license. So that's an option. I have a German passport, so it depends, if you are allowed to work, in Europe. But I was doing all my training in South Africa, so that's why I got an ICAO license.
Okay.
So it depends. I mean, in South Africa, it's pretty cheap also to
yeah, it depends upon the currency as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, that's good information. I have another question from Rudra. He says, I'm 19 years of age and currently pursuing BSc in aeronautics with minors in safety. My question is it recommended to pursue a master's or proceed with my pilot training?
Yeah, I think if he's already there.
I can also answer this now, that you should go side by side.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think if he focuses on finishing his master's and then going into piloting, then obviously I think that would be great. That would look good on his CV as well to find a job. It would give him definitely an advantage of getting into a proper airline. Yeah. And also, if he decides one day to go maybe to the US, he won't have any restrictions joining a major airline like American Airlines or United, where they do require just a bachelor's degree. But if you got a master's, I mean, it just puts you so much further on top of the CV file. It is very competitive in this market. So whatever you can do to put yourself ahead of somebody, your competitor next to you, definitely is worth doing it.
And it will give you something to fall back on.
Yeah.
Because with aviation, we have to have a medical check every year. So if, for instance, if you have any health issues and you lose your medical, then I mean, we don't have a job anymore. So that's another con actually we could have mentioned.
Yeah.
But if you have anything to fall back on, that's great.
Yeah, that is also very important.
Yes.
Yeah, because people don't think, anything can happen.
Yes.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, simple thing like maybe diabetes or, any health related issue where, it can compromise our flying, they wouldn't give you your license. Right.
I remember an incident which happened with one of our friends. He was a pilot and he had high BP. So the airline didn't allow him to fly because, they said in the cockpit air pressure and all that, it will not be good for you. And we will be risking the life of the people on board. So being fit also is very important.
Very, yeah.
So Rudra, I think you should do your master's. As Brigitte says that you have at least you have an option, plan B. So if this doesn't work, you have something to fall back and do. Then we have one question from Asma again. She's saying, which country would you recommend is the best to become a pilot?
Depends where Asma is from. I would say your own country is the best country to do your pilot license.
Yeah.
Your opportunities as a citizen are always better in your own country as instead of an expat in that country. The Middle East is maybe sometimes a little bit different. There aren't as many pilots as there used to be, but it is picking up. There are flight schools training for Etihad, for Emirates, for Air Arabia. So I would say go to your own country first, if that is where you want to be.
She says she's in UAE.
She's in UAE.
Yeah.
Is she an Emirati citizen?
No, she's a Pakistani living in UAE.
Okay. It's difficult in the UAE. It seems there's one flight school in Fujairah. But I think it would be better to try and do your training in Pakistan. Maybe try and get in with one of the low-cost carriers in Pakistan or one of the smaller charter companies to get your experience. Because if you do your license in the UAE, where are you going to get a job from here with zero experience. If you're lucky, you could become a flight instructor at the flight school and then build your hours like that. That could be an option. And then at least you get paid from once you got your commercial license. You do your instructor's rating directly after that. And then you start giving instruction and you start earning an income and building hours at the same time. But maybe if you go to Pakistan, the general aviation industry is a bit bigger. The country is a lot bigger. So there are more airplanes flying around. Where I think the UAE is very limited to mostly international flights. We don't have domestic flying in the UAE. The country is just too small.
Right.
And plus, another point is most of these airlines here, they only recruit pilots that already have, experience. So it's like Sean mentioned, it's better to get your experience and then come back to the UAE with your experience, because the companies here, for instance, Emirates and Fly Dubai require a minimum of 2,000 hours. And they also need you to be on aircraft with a certain weight category. So they definitely want you to be a little bit more experienced before you.
Yeah.
The options are limited here.
Okay. I've been tempted to ask, because now I've realized that you're, no matter how glossy it looks and how, you find it that it's your passion, but it can be an adventurous ride for you guys as well. So is there any special event which has happened, which was adventurous, or some situation which you have to handle instantly? You have to take a call, or, something happened, turbulence happened, and you just felt that things are going out of control. Probably Sean and Brigitte both can share their experience. I hope you never had such kind of experience, just asking.
Well, first of all, some of the exciting moments of my life was definitely the first time I was flying solo. So when you do your private pilot license, you get to a stage where you have to solo fly the plane. And for me, that was my most amazing moment ever, when you look next to you and there's no instructor, it's only you, and you take off and you land that plane. And that was definitely one of the most memorable moments. And then as a flight instructor, I really enjoy to teach people to a level where they can fly by themselves. And it was just an honor to see them progress. And most of my students are now 737 pilots. So that's amazing. And then, basically the cons, there was a lot of, you learn from experience if you're a pilot, definitely. And that's why most major airlines want you to have, hours and experience already, because when you fly your little Cessna around in terrible weather, you experience a lot of things and you learn a lot of things. And as a charter pilot also, you learn from mistakes, and that just, it keeps on making you a better pilot day by day. So I've had a lot of, situations where, I wish I wasn't there, but it happens to all pilots. You have these situations like really bad weather, and you thought, oops, maybe I shouldn't have taken off. And then, next time you know better, you check the weather better, and you learn from it. So I can tell you a lot of stories, but I think let me leave it there.
That's okay.
It's a really exciting career. I was very lucky going through the Air Force. From my personal experience and my view of being a pilot, I think the pinnacle is the Air Force. If you can get into the Air Force, no matter if you're flying helicopters, transport, jets, whatever it is, just the flying in the Air Force is just completely different. I had the most fun in the Air Force. I had the greatest training in the Air Force. Again, also flying solo for the first time by myself was incredible. It was something you would never forget.
Right.
You get the aerobatics that you do during your training, the low-level navigation that you do between the mountains, and the skills that you learn for chart reading of a map, target within 2 or 3 seconds after a 2 or 3 hour flight is incredible. And then applying that experience as well, when we used to do border patrols, maritime patrols, all these type of things. Every flight, not every flight, but many flights are, it's very exciting. It's everything is experience. You make mistakes as well, like Brigitte said, flying into bad weather or not flying far enough away from bad weather. I've had some experiences with that as well, where my navigator was stuck to the roof. He wasn't strapped in. We went through bad weather, bad turbulence, and the aircraft just fell out of the sky with brute force. It was quite rough, and he wasn't really strapped in, so he was basically stuck to the ceiling while we were falling out of the sky. Yeah, it was very rough. And then I mean, after that, you realize, okay, these thunderstorms are really nature is very strong. So you got to respect it and give it a wider berth next time, maybe.
I think you need to be patient and cool at that point of time to handle the situation.
Yeah, we lost all electrics on the aircraft as well during that stage. So it was an interesting time. We had an engineer on board, so while he was sorting out the electrics.
Glad to know you all are safe.
Yeah, getting the generators back online, you focus on flying the aircraft and getting it out of the weather and getting to a safe area and continuing the flight. Make a decision from there. But yeah, there's always something interesting happening.
Yeah, that's nice. All right, I have a question from Brigitte. Probably you are the best one to answer this. Saida asked that, is it a good career for females, especially for a married woman with kids?
Well, definitely for a female, I think it's a great career for male, female, anyone. With obviously there's some challenges when it comes to family life. But I have a really good friend. She's a helicopter pilot and her husband as well. And they have a newborn baby. But they have a full-time nanny and she's great with kids. So she gets to still fly and enjoy her life. And then she gets to spend quality time with the kids when she's back. And she fly rotation. So she's 2 weeks away, 2 weeks back. So, and they make it work. So my point is, if you have a family and you really are passionate about flying, I honestly think that you can make it work. If your husband is understanding and your family is understanding and you can find maybe a very nice nanny to look after your kids. I don't say that you have to have a nanny or whatever, but you can make it work. Yeah. You can make it work. If that's your passion, you can make it work.
I think this is applicable for a female in any industry, you know. It's not only for pilots. A female married and with kids have to work on different permutation and combination. And if you want to really do it, you will find ways to do it.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean like you're going to neglect your family or your husband. Or I mean, we are very happily married, and because I love what I do, I'm happy every day. So for me, that makes sense. If you are happy, your husband will be happy, your kids will be happy. And
well said. You need to be happy to keep people around you happy. Great. I have another question from Rudra. He's saying, how has the pandemic affected your job at Etihad? What has been your safety net in case of long-haul disruptions within the industry?
All right. Well, I've got first-hand experience with this. Now, that's just the other downside of this industry. It's very fragile, like we just saw as well in 2008 as well with the economic crash. I lost my job with Etihad. So at this stage, I'm just keeping my licenses current. I'm keeping myself updated and ready for when the industry starts up again. So it is something to consider as well. A lot of people lose their jobs when the industry takes a downturn. So that's something to consider. And it goes in waves, it goes in cycles. So it is basically part of this industry as well. Very few people go through this career without losing their job at some downturn or company goes bankrupt or for whatever reason it is. This one is quite a tough one. I think this pandemic might last a little bit longer than what we expected it to. In the beginning, it sounded like 2021, 22 might be the pickup again, but it seems like it's just dragging on a little bit longer. There are signs of recovery. So for myself and basically most of my friends as well who lost their jobs in this industry, most of us have either gone into another sector to try and keep busy, or just waiting out the pandemic or the downturn in the industry, looking for other opportunities at this stage.
Yeah.
So yeah,
things are started getting better now.
Yeah, you can see there's light at the end of the tunnels. Companies are starting to rehire again. Flights are picking up. The guys, my friends that are still at Etihad, everybody's saying the flights are picking up definitely. They're working a lot harder. So I think not too long and things will get back on track. But it will probably take a few years before it's back to 2019 levels.
Is there any maximum age limit that up to a certain age only you can fly and then you have to move to another kind of a job profile?
There is a retirement age, and I believe in the Middle East it's 65. In South Africa it's 62. So, and in New Zealand you can fly until your medical is no longer approved. So you can fly as long as the doctors say you're good to go.
Yeah, whole life you have to be fit and healthy. Yeah, that's nice. So, Sean and Brigitte, is there any recommendation you want to give to the students who are aspiring? Or, I mean, if any one tip you both want to give to the kids who are aspiring to be a pilot, or the parents whose kids are looking for this profession?
Yeah, it's if you really want to do this, and it's something that, for me, like I said, I've always wanted to do. This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do. If you feel like that, then this is the best career you can have. It's incredible. It is an adventure. It is exciting. It's stressful, but it's a lot of hard work in the beginning. But you see all the hard work that you put in, what you get back from it. So it's definitely worth getting into this, investing into this, but do make sure this is really what you want to do. It's a big investment. And also do your homework about where you do your training. Just make sure the flight school that you go to are accredited. They have a good name. They will treat you well. You've got good instructors there. That's very, very important to choose where you get your training from. Yeah.
That's a good tip. Yeah. So one of the students, Preeti, is asking how long is the training period? So it is any fixed period of training, or it is depends upon the number of hours you fly?
Well, that depends. If you do it privately, like I did it, you can do it as fast as 2.5 years, maybe even 2 years, for up to your commercial pilot license. But as I mentioned before, for your air transport pilot license, you require 1,500 hours. So that can take maybe even 4 or 5 years to obtain that amount of hours. So what I did was, within 2 years, I had my PPL and my commercial pilot license and my instructor's rating. And then I started off as a flight instructor, and I was a flight instructor for nearly 3 years and a charter pilot before I even reached my 1,000-hour mark. So it depends how you go about from it, but for privately, that's how I did it. With the Air Force, I think the initial training pod that was more or less the same.
Yeah, it's also 2 years in the Air Force. But like I said, the Air Force is very rigid. This is the curriculum. You fly on this day, this day, this day. So there's not much movement unless the weather is really bad. But usually the 2 years, and there's a cut-off date as well.
But your experience basically starts once you have your commercial pilot license. Then you need to find a job that accepts low-hour pilots, and that's really difficult. So that's why I went for flight instructor, because then you can actually build your hours being a flight instructor, and that's a really, really good way of building hours. You really learn a lot by being an instructor, and then you will meet people along the way. So I met a really wealthy businessman in South Africa, and I was doing charter flights all over Africa for him, and that was also a way of building hours. So that's depends. I mean, how long it takes you to get to your 1,500. Roughly 2 years, a little bit more, maybe 2.5 years.
Minimum 2 years you need to plan.
Yes.
Okay.
There's companies that basically do it a little bit faster, but that's the average. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So another question from Asma is, do you recommend doing BSc in aviation flight sciences? I think, Asma, they already answered this, that if you do in the relevant field, it's an added advantage for you. And, it gives you a backup plan to fall back if anything doesn't work out. So if you do BSc in aviation flight sciences, I think it will make a difference. What do you say?
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely.
It just adds another tick on
the
your
cap.
CV. Yeah, no, it puts another feather in your cap. It looks good, and also, even if you join a company, you can always move into into a management position. You can still fly, but you can be part of management as well, which gives you a lot more job security, especially in this industry where sometimes you go to downturn like what it is now. So that would maybe give you another option. I'd say getting a degree in that definitely has got a big advantage.
So Sean, which makes me ask you that in the aviation industry, apart from being a pilot, what all job positions people can think of? Because everybody just knows pilot and ground staff. In between openings and job profiles, it's not very open to everyone.
Yeah, look, it's there's the mechanical side. A lot of technicians are needed across the world, so there's a big market for those guys as well.
Okay.
Aircraft technicians, air traffic controllers. There's also a market for that. That's also quite an interesting line of work in aviation. You can do that. You can also get trained for that. A lot of people do it via the Air Force as well. That's also a good starting point.
Okay.
Or doing a self-funded course in air traffic control as well. Yeah, so there's aviation management. Get a degree in that. Try and get into a small company where you can work your way up into getting the knowledge of how to run an airline. And then move your way up the ranks, obviously, like in any other industry. So there's quite a few things you can in the aviation line, because it's such a big team effort to get an aircraft off the ground. There's so many supporting roles. You can go into any one of those supporting roles, from flight operations, a flight planner. You can become a dispatcher. A dispatcher's course is similar to a commercial license in the exams, understanding how the flight works, and then you can work in flight operations and basically do the planning for the flights. And then that is just another stepping stone to getting into the company and working your way up, which is also an interesting way.
Okay, that's good. So I think it's been almost, we are going to hit 1 hour, and it didn't feel like we were having a wonderful conversation. So I would just ask you as a last question that, what would differentiate a good pilot as a great, differentiate between good pilot and great pilot?
Well, I think you have to be open and humble and willing to learn every day. Because honestly, team working is really important to get along with everyone and to use your resources. But definitely just never think that you're on top of your game. Always think that you can learn every day. And even if you have thousands of hours, you are human, you can make mistakes. So definitely a good pilot, to distinguish between a good and a great pilot, I think is someone who are willing to learn every day and just to stay humble and open-minded.
That's wonderful. That you have well said, that you should be open to learn, because I think earlier people used to say that doctors need to study throughout their life. But I think in every profession, you need to keep on learning to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
This industry is also something you don't do your academic subjects and then it goes into just working. You're always studying. Every 6 months you do simulate the checks, and then you do your license renewal. So there's always work to be done and keep you on top of your game, because it's such a regulated industry. You've got to be aware of all the limitations around you.
Right. All right. Then we had a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. I think we would never come to know these aspects just by, going through on the Google searches or just finding out on ourselves. I think, talking to you guys have opened up many options in our mind, and, it has given a process which students can follow to make the career choice they are going for, which, as Sean suggested, that they need to first confirm whether they really want to do this or not, because it requires a lot of determination and dedication to this profile. So
Absolutely.
Thank you once again. Thank you everyone who have joined us today, parents, students aspiring to be in this industry. If you have any more queries, you can email it to us, which you're not able to ask right now. I'll connect with them and try to take the answers for it, and I'll get back to you all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great evening ahead.
Thanks,
Thank
you
you
too.
too.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All the best, guys.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.